Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. I'm your
Mm.
host, Jeremiah Fountain. I've got my faithful co-host, brother with me here, Mr. Nick Valente.
Hey
Nick,
guys.
what's going on, brother?
Oh, just doing good, doing real good.
Awesome, awesome. We are very lucky tonight. We have a great guest, good buddy of mine, known him for years, wealth of knowledge. He is a herpetologist, contract biologist, and a researcher with Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. A very some pretty heavy hitters there. So, Dan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine. Glad to be with you.
Glad to finally have you on, man. We played some tag for a while, but finally got you on, so that's all that matters, right?
All good.
It's all good. All good. Now, we usually start the show off by, we ask you, what got you involved in this, this crazy field we're all so in love with.
Glad to tell you. Fifth grade. Well, first of all, in third grade, I decided I wanted to be a herpetologist because that was the closest to dinosaur animals we could find,
Wow.
supposedly.
That's some
So I knew that by third grade. By the time I was in eighth grade, I knew all the Latin names of all the amphibians and reptiles in Wisconsin. By the time I was a senior in high school, probably the majority of them in the entire United States. And I wanted to travel all over. So I did as soon as I got a driver's license. As far as the Sasquatch stuff, it was my fifth grade teacher mentioned the word abominable snowman.
Hmm.
And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. So you hit the encyclopedia, and by golly, here's all the stuff out of the Himalayas and researchers that claim tracks, and the Sherpas and all the talk of shadows in the mist and all that good stuff, and yaks being attacked, and so I got into that. And then here come the Patty thing, and it was amazing because I thought, okay, we've got claims in California. It means I don't have to go to the Himalayas. What's up with that? And I was always interested in big primates anyway, gorillas and orangs and all that. And one thing led to another, and I've got Ivan T. Sanderson's book, and I'm looking for more literature. And so I started my literature search basically in third grade or fifth grade.
Wow.
Seventh grade, I had my first incident at a church camp in the northern Wisconsin in the Pines.
Okay.
Something huge was vocalizing behind the cover of a lake edge and splashing around and would not come out. And we had like 30 campers all shining flashlights and it wouldn't come out. And I'm like, what can make that volume of noise? And it sounded almost exactly like the hiss of a bull pine or gopher snake, Pituophis. And it's like,
Hmm.
how can this? So I went into an emphasis on wildlife biology when I went to college, partly because of this experience.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
mm,
that really got you motivated to pursue it further.
Oh yeah, it was just like I couldn't find any matching wildlife vocals that can
Right.
be, and I didn't
Right.
until I was in my 40s. So, and
Wow.
I my 20s and 30s, I couldn't find adult human beings to talk about this subject with except for just a couple guys.
Hmm.
So I was isolated. And by the time I joined the BFRO in 2000 on a bet with my sister after our mom died, um, I was in there for 4 years. And it was great because I was working with some of the people that wrote the books that interested me in the subject in the first place.
Right. Right.
So,
That's interesting.
and the
That's
journey
interesting.
started. And once this bleeds into your body cavity, it's like you can't get away from it. So
You can't.
it's
You
24/7.
we've all been bitten by the bug.
Oh, exactly.
so Dan,
And
do you
what
work
a
in
bug she is.
Dan, do you
Or
work in the field of herpetology?
Yeah, I did. I'm in my 60s now. So,
Uh,
but I still do. As a matter of fact, I've got a speaking engagement on the 15th of February at an elementary school. But I've worked for, actually, Nick, if you were to go to my timeline, I just did a self promo for speaking engagement.
okay.
And it's just basically a cross section of what I've done. And I was on fire. So I've been to Florida 18 times. I've been in every state except for six. I've been to Australia, Tasmania, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Hispaniola, volunteering at the Milwaukee Public Museum. I've been a zookeeper, And I've been a wildlife biologist and survey biologist and environmental assessment biologist for quite a few years as well. So
Wow.
yeah. I'm published in 150 different books and magazines, some covers, and I haven't even started the writing. Or I'm also a biological illustrator, and so there's all kinds of things like regarding vendoring or illustrating technical bulletins or books or magazines or
Right.
whatever. So that career awaits.
Well, good. I know you've always had a lot going on.
Yeah, I'm a single guy. I never found her, and still looking. But
You'll find her.
until that happens, um, I got to be busy, and I get
Yep.
bored fairly easy, so I got to have something interesting going down.
Right.
So Dan, do
Now,
you do all the cryptids then, not just Sasquatch, correct?
What's that? Oh
You
yeah,
do-
I'm interested in all of them, but I'm
Uh-huh.
90% plus Sasquatch just because that's something I know that's real. I've had experiences with, and
Right.
I'm just the shocked and amazed continues because of the incredibility of it. And I'd like to have a diurnal close-up observation. I'm glad
Seriously,
to change
yeah.
my pants however many times
Right.
needed.
Let me ask your opinion on a couple of things then.
Yeah.
The teepees that are found out in the forest area a lot of times. What do you think that's all about? Have any
I
theories?
think number one, I think a lot of times it's just people, but a lot of times it might not be. And the reason I say that is because I have talked to people that have associated footprints with them. And I know of an individual who I don't know if he wants his name mentioned, but he said he saw one standing by one. So
Nope.
I think there could very well be a correlation. I certainly don't believe every piece of claim is true, but I certainly think that they're. I mean, the kids got to get bored from time to time, right? So who knows what they're
Sure.
making, and who knows what
Sure.
they're copying. And when you start seeing things that are being big trees that are being moved around, and there doesn't seem to be any
Right.
equipment capability with it,
Hmm.
that certainly raises your eyebrows. So
I mean,
something's going down.
I mean those teepee like shelters, they're really not shelters. They're wide open, so it's not going to shelter anyone. And uh,
No,
my theory was that maybe it was a signal to other Sasquatch that come through the area.
who knows? Could be, and it might be that it's not an omnipresent thing. It could mean different things in different locales. Who
Mm.
knows? We got fragment information and a long way to go to get some of these things taken care of. So
Oh yeah. My
yeah,
other thing was I've seen it out there in forest areas. I mean, I've traveled through almost all 50 states already.
cool.
And I've seen it where large trees are ripped out of the ground and they're shoved from the top down into the earth. Now,
Yes.
something tremendously strong, I mean, beyond tremendously strong, would be needed to do something like that. And unless you got people out there with some, machinery that they're able to do it, I don't know. What do you think about that?
I'm still thinking about it.
Isn't that something?
I'll just go shocked and amazed. And there's tremendous mystery here that's going on, and who knows how long it's going to take our science to catch up with some of the things that
Right.
allegedly Sasquatches are, if
And
they are
do, yeah.
around. So
I mean, I was actually,
the claims are so widespread, it's hard to put a finger on a lot of it, but a lot of it, you experience things and you walk away scratching your finger going, what in the world?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually able to touch one and it didn't tip over. It was so far jammed into the ground
Yeah.
from the top down. And you see the bottom, part sticking up out of it like a mushroom. And it's like, what the heck could have done this? And something else I recall watching on Discovery Channel, there was this logging company up in Canada and they were filming for some commercial they were going to do for the company. And out of the forest area, right where they were filming, and they had all their machinery, comes flying. I would say it was about 20 inches round and
yeah.
about a good 15, 17 feet long tree. It just came flying out of the forest area. Now, what they did was they tried to replicate it in Hollywood with a machine that would be able to throw something like that, and they weren't able to replicate that, at least not for the distance that it was thrown. So it's like, wow, what the heck could be out there?
Nick, any idea what kind of weight that would be with a 20-inch diameter or 20 inches around?
Oh God.
20-inch diameter,
Shit.
and I believe it was like 15 feet long. I mean, my God.
Yeah.
And it launches it with one arm, right?
It must have. I
Is
don't know.
is that the video where it's crouched down and it launches that big log with
Yeah,
one arm on that log? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I've seen that video.
Yep.
I don't know what the heck could have done it. I mean, like I said, a Hollywood guy did try to replicate it. And I mean, they built a really nice machine. It was really doing well, but no way did it even come near the distance that this thing was launched. So,
Well,
I mean, what could we possibly have out there?
if a 6 foot, 400-pound gorilla has such incredible power, where are we at with a 10-foot, 1,000-pound similarly?
Unbelievable strength and power and
Yeah.
something like that, then. My
I mean, if
God.
there's a correlation between the target species and that event, the cow. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just something for people to think of out there, in all
It is.
honesty.
Yeah.
Well, the
All
strength
honesty.
that opens the door to strength and power and torque and speed and all the reports that we continue to gather about. You know, I've got one incident of a 10-foot, at least minimum 10-foot tall male with 19-inch prints, standing broad jump, 20 feet, easy, no effort. You know, I mean that. And if that's 1,000-pound or an 853-pound animal, my goodness. And
Yeah.
forgive me for saying animal, but as Cliff Brackman likes to say, well, they're sure as hell not plants. So there you go.
Right. Right. Now it's a good point because I saw one. That female I saw, she went 63 feet in 3 leaps.
Yeah.
You know, and to
Yeah,
do something like that, it's got the athleticism is just incredible.
What kind of size do you think she had, Jeremiah?
She was standing in the water, Dan, and the water went up to about 6 inches underneath her knee, and I saw about 7 feet of her, which would have made her a little over 8 feet. She was a big girl.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say about 600 pounds, about 3 feet
Sure.
front to back, wide shoulders, and
Wow.
she was impressive looking.
I
was
would have
impressive.
loved to have seen her. Wow.
I was about 30 feet away.
Oh my! Well, we're gonna have to talk because I want to draw up an illustration,
Yeah, I'd love you to.
privately to match with what you already have. That'd be
I'd love
awesome.
you to.
That'd be cool.
That'd
Oh,
be
Dan,
phenomenal.
you can illustrate from descriptions of things.
I am a biological illustrator, and some of my best
wow.
friends are Alexa Evans and Sibylla Irwin,
Wow.
and Thomas Finley, and so many, many more. Michael Montoya, I met him in Arizona last spring, and I would love to meet every illustrator on the planet that's interested in this project.
Well, if you ever have time, I'd love to see if you might be able to do an illustration of what I had an encounter with.
I would be honored to.
Unbelievable! What it was. It was.
I'm working on trying to finish an illustration right now for Waller over in Ohio, of an individual that was described jumping off the last rung of ladders going down a fire tower in Idaho. So that's what I'm working on tonight.
My God.
And I've got a friend out in Washington, and she's waiting for one. And once I get done with that, I'll be in the clear.
Beautiful.
I mean, the dogman that I saw was, I mean, I didn't even know what it was at the time back in 2013. And to see, I mean, I was doing zoology at the time. I was doing cryptozoology. I never knew what the term dogman was. And this thing was just enormous, totally enormous. And I'm like, I know what a werewolf is, but what the heck is this standing on 2 feet in front of me? It was like unbelievably shocking, in my mind.
Nick, I have to say that about 9 years ago, I was gifted a group on dogmen. And when I took it, my thinking was these have to be misidentified descriptions of Sasquatches, possibly with muzzles or, kind of an elongated profile. And, recessive characteristics could make ear placement or ear shape different and all these things. And that was my philosophy going in, knowing that I was going to get more Sasquatch reports. Well, I
Right.
did. But I also got other types of reports. And the anecdotal stuff is really strong, behaviorally and physically descriptive. And so it intrigues me. I don't know how bad I want to see one, but I do. And I'd be more than honored than to work with you on what you saw. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll contact you through Facebook Messenger and see what
Sure. And
we can come up
I'll
and
flip you my private stuff so you get my
okay.
numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does great work, Nick. Phenomenal.
I mean, if your brother Jeremiah is your brother of mine, so no problem, man.
He is.
Appreciate it.
He is.
Yeah.
He's as
Nick's
close
like my
as
big
blood
brother.
can get, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah. We work very well together. We got the show rolling this year. We've had some great guests, another great one tonight. So what have you had going on lately, Dan?
Lately, well, I'm doing research with OMS,
Yeah.
Ozark Mountain Sasquatch. I am interested. Okay, there's certain things I can't study. I
Right.
can't study the individual variation of all the juvenile and immature Sasquatches available on the properties around the country, simply because it's going to take time to get people familiar with those prints to get me the data on them. And many people are not going to be willing to do that. What I
Right.
can do is I can study the hell out of Homo sapiens and get the individual variations and extremes and minimals and averages through us. I can get familiar with the structure of our foot extremely well. And so that's one of the projects I'm doing now, because I think a tremendous amount of footprints are ignored because that's questionable. Oh, that's very unlikely. Oh, that's too small. Oh, it was out in broad daylight and there's no way. Oh, 53 reasons why those small prints couldn't be Sasquatch. But I think a lot of them are under the radar.
Yeah.
So that's one aspect I'm working on. I'm also working on all the anatomy, the physiology, the ethology or behavior of the known great apes. So we understand what they do, what their limits are, what their exceptional behavior is, what their average behavior is, and how does that compare with Sasquatch?
Yeah.
And then you get into diet, and you get into hunting strategies and foraging strategies, and then it's a deep, widespread subject that'll be busy for years, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That's some of what's going on.
Very cool. Very cool.
Speaking of diet for Sasquatch, you think both meat and vegetable? Or
Definitely omnivores. Yes. The BFRO likes to say that the deer, white-tailed deer, or mule deer or blacktail is the main protein source for Sasquatches, but it comes down to a locality situation.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
don't underestimate those smaller animals. I mean, we've got a wide protein source in virtually every state in just a raccoon. Raccoons in the south are just, and now with the fur industry being halted because of socio impact, my goodness, we have tons of raccoon. I don't know whether they're regularly eating coyotes or not, but some might in stress situations. Don't forget the fisheries management that we have. That's incredible. There's protein all over. You can start with grubs. Yeah, you go to beaver, you go squirrels and rabbits, small game, anything we eat, they can eat.
Yeah, rabbits and birds and things that are out there. Yeah,
sure. And I'm guessing that their weight can fluctuate. That's my guess. Mine does. I was 262 pounds last January. I'm down to 229 now. I'm going for 198, and I'm built like a fullback. I'm only 5'8", so I shouldn't be anywhere near that weight. But I'm going to get back on weights and change my body a little bit. I bet they can too. So
yeah, they probably could. I mean, heck, last year at this time I was 211 pounds. I mean, I work out a lot with weights, but I decided I needed to reduce, and right now I'm like 196.
Well, there you go.
But it was easy. The point I'm trying to get at, like Sasquatch, it's my food source. I stopped eating any sort of desserts. and I stopped eating breads for the most part.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, the weight just flew right off.
Yep. Yep. Well, I got rid of my hungry. I was doing 8 buffets a month, and I'm down to 2 now. So I like to eat.
That's a good cut down.
Buffets, wow, whoa, yeah.
Sit in there for 3 hours, you know.
I mean, you wouldn't see a Sasquatch sitting down on a tree stump, sucking down an apple pie or some kind of a carrot cake or something like that, or cheesecake, or a loaf of bread or Italian bread or anything like that. They're not going to have those simple carbohydrates, like most humans are eating. So for the most part, I guess they're muscle, whole muscle, because they are ingesting all that protein.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the ones I've seen, the muscle mass is just absolutely incredible. I can't even describe it.
How many have you seen now, Jeremiah?
The one in 2000, the one in 2007. Stacy saw that big one, that really big one I was telling you about in 2016, which we think is the alpha male of the group.
Sure.
He measured out, the limb was 10'6". He went under and he only cleared it by about 2 inches. And she was 20 feet away from him. We saw then her, I'm like Nick, I consider an encounter and a sighting a different thing,
Mhm.
So, I've had 2 straight up face-to-face encounters, one in 2000, one in 2007,
Man,
a
wow.
sighting in 2016. Stacy saw that one. Then we saw a dog man that summer as well.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yep, saw that dog man run across the road onto our property. Then when we went to North Carolina, remember when we were down there for those couple of years?
Yes.
We saw a gray one down there, and I'll tell you about this guy. This guy looked so much different than what we see up here. A lot shorter, a lot stockier, but not as massive. And they, they still they come to our windows and they'll look in the windows. The Sasquatch don't bother us. It's when they leave in November, they come back in April. But while they're gone, it's the other with the dog men that sometimes give us a little bit of problems.
Really?
But yeah.
Wow, we got a lot of talking to do.
Yes, we do. Definitely. So where are you at right now? What state you in right now? I know you're.
I am right next to the Minnesota-Iowa border on the Wisconsin side, near La Crosse, Wisconsin.
Okay.
And that means I'm 200 miles west of Milwaukee, 200 miles southeast of the Twin Cities, 500 miles northwest of St. Louis, and let's see, I'm about 900 miles from you.
Yep. Yeah, about that.
And I do have plans to come to New York. So
I hope so, brother. I hope so, Nick. We plan on doing something this summer as well. So
awesome.
maybe we can all get together.
That would be great.
That'd be great. You got a perfect place right in the lot for you to put your mobile home, Dan.
Cool, man.
You're as welcome as long as you want to stay. You can stay, buddy.
Appreciate it. Never know.
Yeah, we got our group is about 6 to 8 right now. So so we have a lot of work to do down there.
Very cool. I got a question for Nick.
Yeah.
Have you seen a Sasquatch?
Unfortunately, no. Not for me not having trying. I mean,
right.
I don't understand it. I was in Washington State. I heard tree knocks. I heard whoops. I did not see anything. I mean, we were out there for 7 days. I saw nothing. Went to Oregon, didn't even hear tree knocks. And the fellow that I went to visit up there said, he's got a family of them living there, running around there for 3 days and nothing. And for all the times I've been in all the other states out there, never, not once. I've really tried. I've had one encounter with a dog man and 2 very quick sightings of a dog man over the years since 2013. Wow. D.A. Roberts and I saw a dog man in LBL, Kentucky. And this is going back in 2021, August of 2021. That same year in September, I saw one in New Jersey. I had my team out. We were searching an area, and fleetingly we saw one. And that was it. But in 2013 was my encounter, and he just stood there eating a part of a deer. And I mean, when you want to do the illustration, I'll give you the whole,
Yeah.
enchilada. But
That'll be good.
he was standing with his right side towards me. I could see his left part of his pec. He was standing sideways. In this long arm with claws, he just had part of a deer. And every once in a while, he would come up and into his mouth, rip it,
Move.
back down. And it wasn't a fleeting encounter.
Wow.
It was actually about, I got back into my car and I looked at the clock real quick. It was like about a minute and 6 seconds, something like that.
Wow.
And he just ignored me. And Dan, I lit him up with 500,000 candle power of light because my Jeep had KC highlighters.
Yeah.
Plus I had my headlights with the high beams on. I had my fogs, everything on. And he just stood there like
Whatever.
I was insignificant. Like he was the alpha predator out there and nothing's going to bother him. And then after, like I said, about a minute, he just walked off. And I could actually hear the leaves crunch, the branches that he's crunching underneath his feet. And that was it. And then at that point, I'm like, well, maybe he's trying to run around to the backside of me, my 6, and I got back in my vehicle. But I mean, and something else I need to mention is I did smell him.
You did.
He smelled like urine and blood, a combination when you mix the two. Also, I saw in the sky, in the direction he was heading, about 120, maybe a little bit more further out in the sky was a large orb, and it was white. It looked like a white light, but I don't know if it had any substance to it. But that's what I saw when
it's an interesting correlation. I'm going to ask both you guys. Yeah. First of all, some of the illustrations that I've seen, I look at on these alleged dogmen, and the first thing that comes to my mind is a dog-faced monkey, a baboon. And I'm just wondering, does that ever occur? Does that ever occur to you regarding some of the possibilities of some of these descriptions? Just curious if you've got any insight on that whatsoever, or what your comments are.
I've researched this now it's 10 years, Dogman, and with the hundreds of people I've spoken to, not one has described it like looking like a baboon.
Okay.
And every one of them, I guess most of the people that I've spoken to haven't seen juveniles, but the snout has been elongated, like that of a German Shepherd or a wolf. That's what they're describing it to me like.
That's interesting.
Not flat or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that there's a hyena type dogman out there.
Mm-hmm.
Only had one person describe that to me. But something I wanted to get to is that with the dogman, except for the people that have described juveniles, the juveniles were a little bit over 6 feet tall. The adults were all 7 feet plus. None of them ever going to what they would describe as 8 feet tall, but everything was, under 8 feet, maybe 7, 7'2", 7'5", 7'6", in that range. And like I said, with that snout and with those canines out in the front, you can, actually see it.
What kind of ears did your guy have?
Okay, 2 different descriptions I got. One was on the top of the head here.
Yep.
And the one I saw, it was right here.
Really?
And I would say a good 4 inches. Many times people are telling me the same thing. Now, I've also had people describe, this is several hundred people, describe the ears being here, but still coming out and up, like regular dog ears, but here on the side of the head.
Yes.
So, I've gotten 2 different descriptions where the ears are. Heck,
sure.
I've got 2 different descriptions of the knees.
Yeah.
One was knees like we have, and another had knees that are like the back of a German Shepherd, like a dog's type of knees going backwards. But in those 2 cases, One was a almost human-like but narrower footprint with the knees like we have,
Yep.
and the one with the knees going backwards like a dog was a smaller footprint. So there's two differences for the rear legs in
Sure.
any case.
Sure.
The one I saw, Nick, I remember I was telling you, had the knees like us. That one that crossed the road in front of Stacy and I. It had knees like us. It didn't have the backwards ones like a dog.
Like a human's knees. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
To add to this mystery, I talked with one of the witnesses we have here in Wisconsin, and she told me, I think I was looking at him. In other words, that's how close it looked to her. I've seen illustrations that look very, very, very primate-like. And I've got several other reports that describe a baboon, one from Alabama or the Southeast states, where he'd swear that's what they were. But that doesn't mean that's the case. And that's why I bring that up, because that's a primate with a dog-like look, is all that is.
Yeah.
And so until we get better illustrations and better detail and obviously you guys have done a lot of homework on this, and so you've already got a lot of information on it, and how it's gonna come out with all the variations is just amazing, because there is a lot.
Oh, that
And then
truly
three
are.
different people can look at the same thing and describe something completely different, as shown by Thomas Steenberg. So, and by the way, I'll be on his broadcast next week with he and Julie Wrench. So
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, most of the Dogman reports I take up here, and Nick, I think I mentioned this to you, they come back as knees like ours.
That's interesting.
It is interesting. I've never once taken a report up here for a Dogman with the backwards knees. They all have legs like us. I don't know if it's a geographical thing or what, but the type,
A lot of information to get yet.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Just the idea that more and more people are starting to realize there's something else out there besides Sasquatches.
Exactly.
And I think some of the Sasquatches can still be dogmen reports, but obviously there are other things that aren't. And that's, it's such a catch-all phrase, dogmen. So I've also got, besides the hyena look, the baboon look, and the German Shepherd look, or whatever with the high ears, I wonder what else there is, because there's so much variation potential. Who knows what some of the throwback genetics of some of these things are going to look like? Like recessive characters that show up once in a while, extreme looks. So we've got a ways to go. That's for sure.
Well, Nick, how many? There was what, seven?
Seven variants.
So far, we know. Yeah.
This is a poor picture of it. I'm gonna have to make a better one.
Sure, I've seen that.
7 variants of it. One here, boom, boom, and the one over here at the top, I think is more not a dog man. I think it's more of a Sasquatch.
Right.
But they put that in there.
Sure.
Case.
Sure. It'll be good when there's some better photography.
Yeah. I look at it this way. I mean, throughout the world, you've got variants of humans looking differently.
So sure.
Cryptids, why not? From the same basic family, they have different looks to them. They do have different Sasquatch. I think there's 11 different variations.
I'm sure
that they've come out with.
I'm sure it depends on who you talk to, but sure.
Yeah, the reports I've taken, and I know we deal with 3 up here, just up here. There's 3 different. We deal with 3 different types, and the interviews I've done in the past, reports I've taken, has reached me to about 11 different subspecies that look totally different from one another, size-wise, facial features. Facial features can change in the same type, obviously, but I'm talking size-wise, way they move, how they're proportionally built. One of the ones we deal with up here is what you'd call type 4, and they hang out in the St. Lawrence River on the reservation in the swamps, and they're more proportionally built like us, shorter arms. They only, they get up to about 7.5 feet. They look more human, kind of like a, like a old, like the Minnesota Iceman would, something like that.
Yeah.
That was the question I had for you, Jeremiah. Are you
Yeah.
coming up with any that are really human-like?
Yes, I got a report from a gentleman who was on the St. Lawrence River and late at night, and he was doing some things maybe he shouldn't have been doing, but he was out on his boat, and he heard some he was going through a little channel, and he heard some rustling on the side of the bank, and he heard water movement, like almost something was washing its hands, and he had a 2 million candle power spotlight on him. So he cut the boat, put the light on him, and didn't that thing stand up? And it was what I was talking about, one of those Type 4s. It was grayish in color, and this is going to blow your mind, but it's what he told me. This guy's a relation of mine. It had a pinkish face. You know how when people get a workout going and their
Right.
face turns pink?
Right.
He said that's exactly what it looked like, and it looked like a caveman, he said.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. I'm going to give you one of my interesting dogman reports from Florida.
Right.
This was from a gal who, when she's Native American, and when she was younger going to school, like elementary school, a lot of the kids made fun of her because she had darker skin. So she found great solace in going out in the woods behind the house during the day and swinging on a swing that her like father rigged up for her. And she would do this. Well, one day she noticed what looked to be like a coyote or something looking at her. He seemed to be very nice. She just looked at her, and she would sing and she would swing. And over time, she eventually decided, I'm going to give him some hot dogs. So she went over to him, and he stayed looking at her, and she put some hot dogs down. He reached out with a raccoon type like forefoot and grabbed hot dogs. Eventually, over time, according to her, I wasn't there, it came out, and they would sit together, literally, and not far away. And she would just sing. And this would go on and go on and go on. And finally, eventually, one day, she decided, I'm going to see if he'll follow me to the house. He did.
Mommy,
what's
follow me home.
But what's interesting is
Wow.
it rose up on its hind legs.
Whoa.
And she said, my father was 6'4". This thing was taller. And she said, it followed me to the house. Now, the thing is, my dad saw it, grabbed a gun. My neighbor saw it, and his wife saw it. And they were all freaking out. Dad grabbed the gun. It dropped down to all fours and took off. And she said, I never saw it again. And that was her claim. But it had the very, very canine look, but it stood up, and it had these raccoon type paw front on the feet. I've got other information on the hind legs, and I don't think they were too much different than canine. So it wasn't like some of these odd footprints that we get. But that's one interesting one. There are others too, and again, I can't validate them, but that anecdotal information gets stronger and stronger when you start getting the secondary evidence that goes with it. So
yes, definitely. Definitely.
Dan, that's interesting with the type of the type of raccoon type fingers and everything with the claws, because like with the feet, I've had many of reports of different types of, one had five toes with nails or claws rather. One had 4 toes with claws, and one had 3 toes with claws. Different reports. I mean, a lot of them coming in, but 3, 4, and 5 seem to be the norm. And I'm like, wow, 3, 4, and 5. That is a big difference.
It certainly is.
It's like on Sasquatches, Dan. We hear of 6 sometimes.
Yeah,
6 toes.
I've seen casts that way.
Yeah, I've seen that also. 6 toes. That's
I don't see much on the 3 toes anymore.
Not anymore. We used to, but
So what's real and what's Memorex is a question, but I think with like again the recessive genetics that could arise with these big fellas, who knows, you know. And then also the flexibility of the foot and the way that they leave tracks. It might be that certain anatomical features of the foot just don't strike enough to be in the track. So who knows? Because I know some of the tracks are like half. Like we just got one recently with Ozark Mountain Sasquatch down in the Ozarks. There, the individual just left part of a track, and I know that was also associated with the Harryford uh, footprints out in Washington at Grays Harbor. And so I haven't got a copy of that one yet, but I'd like to because Stephen Strufert was commenting on how bear-like it looked. And of course, if that's the case, I find that a little bit interesting simply because most of these guys have that large big toe. And of course, bear have a much more similar sized toe as the entire print. So,
yeah, all the way around is about the
yeah,
same size.
yeah, exactly.
And it depends on what kind of bear we're looking at. A black bear
Sure.
will have a smaller print than a brown bear or a grizzly bear. I mean, if you've ever seen a grizzly bear's paw print, I mean, it's like gigantic.
Right. But also remember, North Carolina sports some of the largest black bear in the country, too.
That's what I found out. That's what I
Over
found out.
750 or 800 pounds. So,
well, the one
880, right, Nick?
Dan, the one we saw,
880.
it was I estimate as 6'5", 700 pounds.
Yeah.
And the anomaly was that the snout was like really long.
Yeah.
This guy was really long. And we also found out that in North Carolina, they don't hibernate. So, you know, you have black bear all year round roaming around, which is lovely.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. When I was down there, like we were saying, they killed one that was 880 pounds.
Wow.
That's amazing. I mean, a black bear to be that big.
To be that big, you know, and they're consistently killed over 700. You know, I mean, that's the size of a big female grizzly. You know,
was that up near you?
No, that was when I was in North Carolina.
That was in North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Well, and incidentally, we have 25,000 guesstimated black bears in Wisconsin.
Yeah, there's a lot there.
25,000.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So
we're one of the states that has, I mean, we're in the top 10 states easily, if not top 5 regarding black bear population. So when people think, well, there can't be any Sasquatch in the Midwest, that gets a little silly.
Wow.
They're sorely mistaken there.
We've also got 1,000 timber wolves, frequent references to cougar since the 60s. And people need to remember that a lot of these cougar population estimates back in the early 1900s were they weren't exactly professionally done. And in our case, the reports came from a man, A.W. Shorger, who worked off newspaper clippings. So just imagine how much he missed.
Yeah. My God. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about all the way up there in the northern United States.
Yeah. Well, we're just under Canada and the Great White North of Minnesota. I mean, you know, there's if this target species is mobile at all, it can easily go from one area to another.
Oh yeah, easily with no problems.
Young excited males looking for adventure.
Yeah,
and a girlie.
Yeah.
So
brings up a good point, Dan. I wanted to ask you your opinion on this. Sure. A lot of these males, these young males, you think that people report seeing, you know, the ones that are 7.5, 8 feet tall, getting into their prime. You think they are males that have left the main group to go start their own?
I would say, yeah. And I think they hang in groups, and I think they're the ones that get in trouble and make the mistakes, and most likely to show up on a game cam or looking at people's window a little bit too often, or you know, they're playing with the doorknobs, they're playing on the roof, you know, those types of things. So it's really intriguing too, because we still have plenty of reports of youngsters And so if these guys are governed by the same natural laws that other wildlife are, including humans, you'd think with the up fisheries management, the wildlife corridors being produced by different states and wildlife biologists coordinating the capability for different populations to move around, these guys would be governed by that and benefit from the extra cover, say the conservation laws that allow farmers to let their fields grow up into wild country, and also our deer management. North America loves white-tailed deer, so we're doing everything we can to have artificially high populations of them. And then, of course, our small game and everything, we've got regulations now so that we try to maintain large numbers. And I would think these guys are really benefiting. And it's amazing and shocking that there's not a body available publicly. That's probably the one big point that a lot of people make regarding acceptance, or just disturbingly letting all this go because there's so many claims. But it's like, for those of us who've seen them or work with them or know them, it's a completely different story. And that's just kind of an anomaly that eventually will take care of itself. But then you get into all the socio-political aspects of it. So hopefully some of that made sense.
Well, look how common the bear is. I mean, how many times have you seen a dead bear in the woods?
Exactly.
You know?
I ask a bear biologist that, and he'll tell you maybe once or twice.
Yeah.
And you put in 30 or 40 years on it.
In a lifetime. Yeah, exactly. I mean, in all the time I've been out there in the field, and it's been a lot. We're talking a few decades here, and I've never seen one. What I did see, though, was a moose skeleton up in Moscow, Maine, when I did a field investigation up there a few years back. The moose skeleton, that had to be an anomaly to see something like that out there.
Sure.
That was amazing. Sure. But the forest claims its own.
Oh, it does.
It always claims its own. People don't understand that. Even deer will eat the bones that it finds out in the woods because it's looking for the calcium, the minerals, and stuff that come from the bones.
That's actually true.
But I mean, to me, a deer, when I first heard about it, and then I read about it, them eating bones, my God. And guys, I'll tell you, if you've ever seen, vultures or anything like that, the carnivorous birds up there with the acidic stomachs, they will demolish a deer carcass, in a day. I mean, the whole family comes there, and by family, I'm talking 20 of them. They're coming down there and they're just ripping it apart.
And on top of that, what predator isn't going to be picking up scraps?
Exactly.
Oh yeah. And then on top of that,
deer skeleton is spread all over.
And then on top of that, you have the insects. And then on top of the insects, you got the microbugs that are out there. Forget about it. There is nothing left.
And if it is true, as Doug Hychek suggests, that a lot of these individuals may target during the winter some of these cedar swamps, that peat moss is acidic. So that's going to take care of things too. So, as far as skeletons and things of that nature. So there's just a lot of combination of things that can help eliminate bodies or carcasses.
Yeah. I can tell you, I've never come across a bear carcass or moose or anything. And to get back to the deer thing, I field dress all my deer. I do it right in the woods, and I leave the rest for the natural order. And I tell you, within 2 days, it's gone.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a deer hunter as well. So
I know in my area, I live in New Jersey, and central Jersey, and there was a dead deer in the street, and the buzzards that came by, these were real live buzzards, big mamas too. And oh my God, everything. First they ripped out the eyes and they ripped the stomach apart, going for the innards. Guys, in about 3 days, there was no more of that deer left. And this was a huge deer. It was a female deer, but really huge.
Hmm.
Unbelievable how they can just, take it right down. And they don't care about the smell or anything, I mean, this
Yeah,
thing was stinking. Woof.
the stinkier the better for the vultures.
They're for us around where I live, they're our natural street cleaner.
Yeah,
It's just gonna take away whatever's out there.
yeah,
Speaking of odors,
yes.
what is the most horrific odor you've either read or experienced described in association with a hairy biped? And then I'll give you my story.
Dan, to be honest with you, with all the experiences I've had, I have never caught the scent. Never, ever, ever. No,
Really
never caught the scent.
interesting.
I have a theory on what it is, what it could be. Obviously,
Sure.
number one, wild creatures, what the target species, everywhere else, those along with bear, we all know they stink, right?
Yeah.
You live
Yeah.
in the woods, you stink. Or it could be a glandular thing, like the
Right.
primates have. I know
Right.
orangutans can do it at will,
As can gorillas.
as
Yes.
can gorillas, yes. So it's not, how far out there is it to think that the target species might be able to do the same thing?
I'm in agreement. Nick, can you further elaborate on what you smelled with that big fella that you saw so well in the lights?
Well, that was a blood and urine combination mix, and I wanted to make sure it was what I thought it was, and I actually mixed blood and urine several weeks later just to, replicate that smell. It was absolutely horrendous, but um, as far as I'm concerned, one time when I was a federal cop, we went in onto some federal land because there was a horrendous smell that was reported.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, no, it has nothing to do with your question, but I've
Oh,
never
that's
smelled
good.
anything as putrid as this smell that we smelled. Evidently, it was a bear, and it had been out there for 2 weeks, and it was rotting. I'm going to tell you, it was horrendous, guys.
Just
Yeah,
knocked down. Yeah.
It was really bad.
Well, here's my situation. I'm coming back from Milwaukee. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I happen to be in a valley that I've got actually a couple of potential reports from. And I'm going up the hill out of the stream bottom, and I hit something. And I'm in a little Ford Ranger. I'm going 60 miles an hour. All my windows are rolled up. I got hit with the worst smell I've ever smelled.
Oh
I don't
God.
know what it was, but you've smelled pig farms before that'll literally knock you off your feet
Oh yeah.
sometimes.
yeah.
This was worse. And I'm
Oh,
just like, what in the is that? And as I'm driving up the hill, I start to decrease my speed. I open all the windows in the Ranger. I turn around. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get this MF as hard as I can get it. So I slow down to 25 miles an hour. I go back immediately. I'm there within, say, 90 seconds, probably even 70 seconds. And I'm slowly going by the area. There's nothing there.
Hmm.
nothing there.
Nothing. So it wasn't a roadkill.
Right.
It was something mobile that smelled horrific. And I have no claim with that whatsoever, except
Hmm.
the unusuality of the experience. So that was interesting. The only other time that I picked up an odor was I had a BF call when I was in the BFRO. I was in there from 2000 to 2004. And this happened to be 911. So the next morning after the investigation, we started hearing about the jets on the radio, which was really strange. And, obviously awful. Well, so during that night, I'm out and I'm catching whiffs of stuff. I'm getting baby crying. I'm getting pig grunts. I'm getting
Hmm.
vocalizations that don't match with our locale. And of course, I'm all curious with the local landowners trying to figure out what is going on. And there wasn't anything. I didn't get one secondary clue on what was there, except for their anecdotal information about these large, hairy things that would climb trees, jump out of trees, run across the yard, came from the railroad tracks a quarter mile away. and that seemed to be the trail they were coming in on to come to the edge of town. And but the scents that I picked up were pretty smelly, and it wasn't skunk, but it was similar in some ways, but it was that wet dog, dead animal type smell. And that's it. I haven't had any other major odors in association with these. So I guess I'm lucky, because if that's an indication of stress, then hopefully I didn't stress anybody out. And that, so hopefully my visit was more welcome. So
That's
Wow.
interesting. That's
That is
interesting.
something that I pay attention to when I'm out there in the field. You know, besides looking up and looking down on the ground, but looking up a lot. We also, you know, we try to look for the sounds out there and the smell. If that odor ever hits me, I know what I'm I'm going to be coming upon.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Hmm.
oof.
How about vocalizations? What have you guys got for that?
Well,
Okay.
when I say, well, for Dogman now, when I say Dogman, it's not like the growl like a dog would do. It comes more from the chest. So it's
Mhm.
not a throaty growl, it's more of a chesty type of growl that I've come across. The same thing in my research. That's what a lot of the people have said. You know, that it's more like comes from the chest, the vibrations are coming from there. Uh, so that's what I've come across in any case. When I was in Washington, like I said, we got some whoops out there. Uh, it was it was amazing to hear the tree knocks. I'm like, what the heck could be whacking something that hard and that big against a tree to make that sound? Because what I try to do is back here, like I'll put a 4x4 in the ground and pick a 2x4 up and smack it just to see what it sounds like.
Mhm.
And go to a tree and smack that 2x4 into a tree just to acclimate and just to see what I should expect. And it's nothing like that when we were out there in Washington State. Nothing like that at all. I mean, this sounded like some sort of a machine picking up a large tree and whacking it into an even larger tree.
Yeah.
It vibrated so terrifically, and it did actually sound like it was not close. Sounded like it was far away. I'd say about, you know, if you want to, you know, honor today's football games, I would say it was about 5 football fields away.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. How about you, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I've got some pretty good Sasquatch vocalizations. In a lot of our research areas, we up here in other places I've caught a lot of mimics. Um, where a lot of owl mimics, a lot of coyote mimics, um, birds, other types of birds mimicking. See, and you can tell. I always tell people when they're mimicking another animal, they will get it almost to the point where it's perfect, a perfect mimic.
Mm-hmm.
But somewhere
Right.
in there, they're gonna screw up,
Yep.
and they alter it just a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And when usually when we record these mimics, we get other vocalizations. I've got a really good vocal of you can hear one doing almost then he'll pound on a tree twice, and then 2 more pounds. And that same night we caught that we think it was that same one mimicking an owl. And I know another gentleman of mine I used to do research with that had a spot. Now he was get this. He's 5 miles away from the nearest body of water. Okay.
Yep.
Now he picked up a loon on his recorder. It was one of these things trying to mimic a loon. Now you tell me. I mean, Dan, you would know. How far away do loons go from the water? Not far, right? Not 5 miles.
Wonderful. I'm so glad you're bringing this up, because I've got another experience to go with this.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Should I jump in with it?
Absolutely.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay. All right. I worked with a gal in Georgia back in 2008. I worked with her for several years, and we had some successes. One of the examples of her claims was, tonight there's a loon calling from these woods.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because where she was, there shouldn't be any loons.
Right.
Well, I did some checking, and hot dang, if there weren't some records of them in that county. And
Oh,
so there was a correlation at the river. So
yep.
that's one of the first breakthroughs I got with that. Uh, Other vocalizations for me, I've been monitoring a property now with a homeowner for over 30 years. She's been over there for over 30 years. I've been monitoring for over 10 years. I haven't got a lot. I've got some things. The first good sign for me was the vocalization I heard up on a hill between dogs and coyotes. It was your standard oh, oh, all of a sudden I got
I got something similar to that actually.
across across the valley. It was low, it was bass, it was deep, and it was almost intimidating. All
Mm.
canines quiet at that point.
Yep.
Speaking of canines, I've got something else interesting. Actually, I'm going to bring this up with Steinberg next week and Julie Wrench. Uh, I'm sitting on this property, knowing that I've got something real interesting going on. And all of a sudden, I've got my microphone going because you always like to have it going, but I was having battery problems, so I slowed them down a little bit and I'd turn them on. And anyway, I had this pack of coyotes come by, and they were really, really close. And they come down the hill, and I'm like, wow, this is the best recording I got of coyotes. It's fantastic. And then when they were gone, I thought I'll wait for other vocalizations, so I shut the microphone off. And so I'm sitting there relaxing, just rejoicing at how wonderful it was to pick up those coyotes that close.
Yeah.
Song dogs, just pretty awesome for me. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the landowner sneezes behind me.
Oh,
And I'm like, what? And it's almost total darkness. She would have a flashlight. So I turned to look at the house, and the house is all locked up. And I'm like, okay. This is like so many. I mean, it can't be much more than a minute to 2 minutes past the coyotes. And I'm like, okay, I'm being watched. And it sounded like it was up in the air.
Mm.
What? Where? And I'm like, my first response is one of the coyotes stayed behind? No, didn't sound like that. Could they make that noise? Possibly. It's not the landowner. Do I have a trespasser here in the dark without lights with no noise? I really, really doubt that. And I'm like, okay, cougar. And then I got to thinking, what's a cougar doing following a coyote back or so close? Maybe it's paralleling them for any scraps it might pick up, but the likelihood, come on, really, that sounded like a person.
mm.
And so I sat there, I turned the recorder on, I sat there for 45 minutes in the dark, in total quiet, waiting for another sneeze, a cough, maybe a change in body shift, maybe a low growl, maybe anything. I got nothing for 45 minutes, and no other sounds around. Everything was quiet. So I'm sitting there for 45 minutes. Finally, I got, I'm going to wear my batteries out. And there's no point. I mean, I put in 45 more minutes of nothing. So I just shut it off, and I just called out and I said, I don't know who or what, but this is awesome. Let's do it again. Picked everything up and walked over to my truck and took off. So that was an interesting one.
Oh yeah. Without a doubt. Definitely. So what's your next plan, Dan? Where are you headed?
Where am I headed next?
Yeah.
As far as field trips?
Yes.
Yeah.
Heading to hang out with the OMS in Oklahoma. Be
Very cool.
March 9 to 12, and that is actually open to others that might be interested. We're going to work a drone looking for heat signatures, and hopefully a general population of people will be real interesting and might draw attention, and we might get some visitors, and we're hoping to work with them on that. And as far as information on that, I'm on the internet. You're welcome to check in with me I can share that information with Randy Harrington and Shane Carpenter. And
Mhm.
although Gary Schutte won't be attending that event, he is part of our team as well. So,
Yeah, good group of guys right there.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Super.
don't know anyone as dedicated as these guys looking for answers. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
are as well. You obviously do this 24/7 and so many other things. And those of us who've been bitten by the bug have this on our mind regularly. We're always
Yes.
looking for more new people to talk to. And most of us will talk to everybody. So,
Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And then after that, I'll be back in Missouri in April. I just picked up another speaking engagement for September in Arkansas. And then Randy
Okay.
Hutchings invited me to speak with him over in Tennessee. That's in October. And then I've had other people reach out and ask me to come to Kentucky and Idaho and numerous other places, but those aren't finalized. And I've just started promoting myself as a speaker. I've been quiet for 20 some years, but I've decided just let it rip because it's a
Yeah.
way to network. And people are going to hate, you know, I don't have, I'm not looking, I'm not in this for the money. If I was in this for the money, I would have quit a long time ago because I
That's
have
the truth.
suffered extreme losses in travel and equipment failure and loss. And it seems like when I donate equipment to people for use, I never get it back. So I have lost thousands of dollars trusting people.
Not
So,
to Dan, not to mention the cost of just traveling from
well,
place to
sure,
place. I mean, it's
exactly.
like enormous. When I travel with my team, there's 7 of us, and just to transport 7 people and all of our equipment,
Well, sure.
uh, it just the cost of housing, people and eating, and it's just enormous. So yeah, you're not going to make money in cryptozoology, but I do it for the love of the science.
Same
And
here.
I want to see one. I want to see one by daylight. I want accuracy in my illustrations and artwork, and I want to see what I'm looking at and working with.
Yeah.
mm,
And that's my number one. Plus, I want to help people. There are
yeah,
people that come
That's
to
what
me
I
that
do.
are just terrified out of their
Yeah.
minds, and anything I can do to lessen the load, I try to do that.
Yeah. Well, shit. I hate to do this, but we're running out of time. Dan,
yeah.
How would you like to come back on?
Sure. Just let me know.
Okay. Yeah.
All good.
I know we 3 of us could sit here and talk all night.
That was one fast hour, man.
Yeah, it goes by
Sure
quick. It goes
was.
by quick, doesn't it? But
It
we'll
does.
have you back on. We got a guest coming on next week, but I think we're open after that.
Sure.
If you have a
Sure.
free
Yeah, if you're up
Sunday night,
for it, that'd be good.
Oh,
and
definitely. Definitely.
maybe we can fit you into the round table this week
Sure.
if you have some time as well.
Okay. I think I'm on with Thomas and Julie on Wednesday, but I'll
Okay.
double check and we'll be in touch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So you
Great.
betcha.
Anyone you want to give a shout out to, Dan?
Oh, my team, of course. Randy Harrington and Shane Carpenter
Yeah.
and Gary Schutte, plus our
Awesome.
documentary team. Uh, we have, I'm not even going to give their names out, but I'm just going to say that we have an amazing group of people that fit in. And we even got one observational sighting from the documentary photographer. So that was very, very nice.
Mm,
And this is something that we're going to be trying. We're just simply trying to validate what we are doing
Yeah.
right.
and make sure that people know this simply is real shit.
It's the real deal.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and pardon my language if I'm off
No,
base.
no, you're all right. You're all right.
That's okay.
Well,
Okay.
this has been an awesome episode. Episode 8 of ODT, season 5. Can't believe it's been 5 seasons already. Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, flew by.
A lot of
Nick,
good info. A lot of good info, Dan.
people,
Excellent.
Thank you, Nick.
yeah,
We'll work
great,
more.
great info, Dan. Great info. We'll have you back on in a couple of weeks. You can reach Nick and I on Messenger, on our group pages. Any questions, feel free to reach out and touch base. Dan, how can people get a hold of you if they want to touch
Just
base?
Dana Nedrelo, DANA, which is actually stands for Dan Allen Nedrelo. But
Yeah,
I needed a crypto profile, so I've got Dana
right.
Nedrelo, and I'm connecting with as many people that are serious about this that want to connect.
Good.
Great. That is great.
Well, that was great, guys. And like I said, Dan will have you back on in a couple of weeks. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And we'll be back next week. And Dan, if you want to hang out for a second after I cut this recording, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night too.